Hey guys, welcome to Associate Tribe. Today we're going to be doing our first video in the series of versus or lawyered, or what's the difference? I haven't decided on a name yet, but we're going to be talking about what's the difference between going to a T14 or a top 14 law school and going to a regional law school, and sort of what the pros and cons are, what the benefits are, and hopefully that will help you in your own decision making in terms of where you want to apply for law school. I'm very, very happy to have my good friend Devin Alavian joining us today. Yay! Devin is currently working in New York City. He went to undergrad at Duke University. He went to law school at Columbia. And so he's going to be our representative for the T14 schools. And I went to SMU, or Southern Methodist University in Dallas, Texas. So I'm going to be the representative of the regional law school and sort of talk about my experience going to a regional law school. So please welcome Devin Alavian. Yay!
Thank you so much for having me.
Hello. Yeah, thanks so much for joining us. Okay, Devin, so to start us off, I already said where you went to undergrad and law school, but if maybe you could talk a little bit about why you chose Duke or why you chose Columbia, sort of more, I guess, tailored to your law school experience or your law school application process. Did you apply to a lot of different schools, do you remember, or target just sort of the top 14? What was your approach?
Well, when I was applying to law school, I definitely took the approach that casting a wide net is a good idea. And I know that there is an application fee associated with filing an application, but I just think about it as an investment. So that $100 that you're spending now, yes, you'd rather spend it on clothes or something else, right? But it's best to give yourself options down the road. And if you're getting into 3 or 4 schools because you applied to 12 rather than 6, trust me, it's a good long-term investment, just like law school itself. So when I was applying, I tried to apply to 4 schools I really, really thought I would want to get into. Those were my dream schools. I applied to 4 schools that I think I'd be okay going to, and then I applied to about 3 or 4 schools that these were more safety schools. Maybe I could get a good scholarship there. I'd get some money. So if I wanted to maybe come out of law school with less or very little debt, those would be good backup options. So I really tried to have a full range of options by the time March and April came around. So my dream school, I think like many people, was really one of the top 3 top schools. So you've got Yale, Stanford, Harvard, unless that's changed over the past 10-ish years. Those were certainly the 3 top schools when I was applying. And very much the talk was about HYX, wonderful acronym. I really wanted to go to one of those 3 schools. And I thought I had a good chance to get into one of them at least. But I did not. That left me with other good options that I was very happy about. I was thinking mostly about Columbia, University of Chicago, NYU, and Berkeley. So, of course, each of those schools has its advantages. I was thinking about, are any of the 4 offering me any money? What sorts of extracurriculars do they have? Are the students there happy? I think visiting the campuses is the number one thing to do. You do not want to walk in on the first day without having gotten a sense of what student life there is really like. So again, just invest a little bit of time and resources to make the most well-informed decision you can.
And one of the things that I know gets asked really often is in terms of, these competitive schools. And I love how you said that all college students want to go to these schools, because for smarties like you, I'm sure those are on the radar. But for others of us, maybe not as much. But one thing that does get asked all the time is, what are the LSAT scores and the GPAs that you need to get into these schools? And so I looked up the median LSAT and GPA actually for Duke first, because I thought that's where you went to law school. But for Columbia, the median LSAT is a 171 and the median GPA is a 3.7. And I think you would probably agree that the LSAT score is going to be much more important than the GPA, especially depending on what you majored in undergrad.
So I was an English major, and I think if you are going to be an English major or any liberal arts major, you need to have a slightly higher than average GPA, because you have to remember that a lot of the people who are going to be applying are going to be applying from hard sciences, or they're going to be applying as engineers, and the expectation for those majors is that they are curved more heavily, and the applicants are going to be maybe coming in with a few B's and C's. So if you, depending on what your major is, that number might go up a little or down a little. And that's why the LSAT is kind of the equalizer. It's the most objective assessment, maybe not the best assessment. I think a lot of people could very persuasively argue that it's not, but that is the one metric that really is, it is the same across the board.
And just to give you guys an idea, I went to SMU in Dallas, and the median LSAT and GPA for SMU is a 161 and a 3.68. So similar GPA, but much lower LSAT score. Was there anything about, I don't know, maybe your undergrad major or extracurricular activities or volunteer activities or something like that you thought maybe made your application stronger outside of just your LSAT and your GPA scores?
Really, I felt like I kind of had checked every box. I had good extracurriculars. I had done community service. I was active in student government at Duke. But applying as a college senior, I felt like I was at a bit of a disadvantage where I really just looked like a cookie cutter applicant. There was nothing particularly special about my application. Looking back, I think that applicants who have maybe worked for a little bit, have some experience in the real world, I think that has become a more and more desirable trait in law school applicants. And law school admissions officers are really thinking about law school applicants the way that business schools think about their applicants, where they want some life experience, they want some practical knowledge that's going to help these students and make them more well-rounded. So especially if you're not sure as a college senior what you want to do, maybe you want to go to law school, maybe you don't, you're not sure if you're really interested in that, I think the best advice I could give is give yourself a year to work, not necessarily as a paralegal, but try to get some sense of what it might be like to be an attorney before you make that decision, because it's a very big decision and it's going to be very likely to be a very expensive decision.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. And one of the things that I think not everyone may be aware of is that you don't actually have to have any particular background to go to law school. You can major in anything, you can work in anything, it can be a second or third career for you. And so if you were an art major, or you sold used cars, or you were a fishing expert, or whatever it is that you did or do, I think that actually looks more interesting on an application than, it's sort of maybe an English major. I was a poli-sci major, kind of these majors that are very common and I don't think they really made us stand out, outside of our scores. And so, if you have something that makes you interesting, if you invented an app or a rocket ship.
Or just say you did those things.
Hang on, I did. Or just pretend you did. Just write that down on your application. And the next thing I wanted to touch on in terms of going to a T14 school versus a regional school is the cost, because I think that the cost is really prohibitive for a lot of people. And so I think when people think of Harvard, Stanford, Yale, Columbia, all of those great schools, they think of also being in debt for the rest of their life, as compared to a regional school, for example. Now, we don't have a great comparison between the two of us because the school I went to, SMU, was also a private school, so tuition was also pretty high, but you can get obviously much lower yearly annual tuition fees at a regional school than you generally can get at a top law school. And so just to give you guys an idea of how much it costs to go to a T14 school versus a regional school, For this year, Columbia's yearly tuition is $67,792 per year. And SMU's is $49,962 per year, which is still really high, but it's a private school, which is why it's much higher. And so I wasn't able to find average law school debt coming out of Columbia or coming out of SMU, but I was able to find, and it's a pretty old number, it's from 2012, but average debt coming out of a private law school was $122,158. And I think the average across all law schools is closer to $150,000 or even a little bit higher. Again, that number was from 2012. And I don't know about you, Devin, but I personally know people who came out of law school with debt around $150,000, $160,000. Was that something that a lot of people you went to school with had quite a bit of debt?
Oh yeah. Oh, 100%. No, this is something that people are still dealing with, and I graduated back in 2011, and a lot of my friends are still swimming in debt. So it's really hard when you're applying to understand the gravity of what that will mean down the line, especially if you decide in your career, you're not looking to work at a firm, or you're not looking to work in private practice where you're going to be making a pretty good salary each year. You won't really know that. You're unlikely to know that before you go to law school, or even before you start working in those jobs. So it's something I think at the outset to kind of give some thought to. Are you comfortable taking 10, 15 years, maybe more, to pay off that debt, especially if you're coming from undergrad with debt? So there are a lot of factors to balance, but I think it definitely is worth thinking about a school that might be giving you some kind of financial compensation, some scholarship, just to kind of lessen the load that you'll have to carry after you graduate, because you don't want to come out of law school thinking that you have to have a particular job just to keep your head above water. That's going to make you hate your career. And
right.
A lot of lawyers already have that problem, so just you want to avoid that for sure. If you're in a position where maybe you're looking at 2 or 3 schools, make sure they know that, because you can let them know that part of the reason why you maybe prefer school A over school B is that school A is offering you some money. Can school B match that? So once you've been accepted, just keep in mind they want you to go to their school. It keeps their yield high, which keeps their ranking high. So all of those are issues that the dean of admissions, the dean of students, that they are thinking about. So play them off of each other, because truly you want as much money as you could possibly get. And when I was working with those, the schools that I was really thinking about going to, I was really negotiating with them and telling them, well, I want to go here, but I can't. It doesn't make financial sense for me to go unless you match that offer. And in my experience, that it worked.
And just sort of a quick comparison to a regional school. So if you go to if you have high grades coming out of undergraduate, if you do well on the LSAT, a lot of the regional schools too will be sort of competing for you to go to their schools for the same reasons. They want the higher LSAT and GPAs, and they want higher rankings. And so if you can go to a regional school, generally speaking, you're going to be able to get more money, more financial aid. And just to give you guys an idea, I applied for schools just within Texas because I was living in Austin at the time. I was working in Austin at the time. My boyfriend at the time was living in Austin. And so I got full ride offers to go to some law schools. I got huge percentages of tuition offered to go to other law schools. And then I eventually chose SMU because I was lucky enough to get a scholarship through a private foundation that paid for the all tuition, all fees, all books, and everything. And so, not that I was necessarily at all, applying to T14 schools, but it definitely made a big difference in terms of coming out of law school with very little debt. Basically, like living expenses that I had ultimately borrowed and paid back to my parents.